Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Namrita Jha. I am Assistant Professor English for College of Pharmacy, IIMT Greater Noida. In this video lecture, we will be discussing communication skills theory part. The unit one will only be discussed in this video lecture. In this unit one, we have three subtopics to discuss: communication skills, barrier to communication, perspective in communication. As per the syllabus of AKTU, in the first unit, we have to cover three topics: communication skill, introduction, definition, the importance of communication, the communication progress, how it starts and how it ends, and what all other stakeholders involved in this process. Barriers to communication, as in when two-person communicate or two entities communicate, what are the obstacles that we face and how we categorize those obstacles. And third and the last subtopic is perspective in communication. Starting from the introduction, what are communication skills? Now, communication, as we all know, is the process of transferring information or ideas or feelings from one entity to another. It can involve multiple person or two person. Now, communication skill is the ability to convey your information in a more clear and effective manner. It involves verbal, non-verbal, and written forms of communication. In the today's world, when world has turned into a global village, communication plays a vital role in both our personal and professional success. In a nutshell, we can say that it is multi-layered skill that involves three things. First, expressing your ideas more clearly. Second, understanding the receiver's perspective. And third, tailoring or editing the message that suits to the context. Motivation speaker and author Tony Robbins has defined communication skill as one that encompasses the emotional and intellectual exchange between individuals, influencing how a message is received and understood. So, in the more layman language, we can say that communication is not only about speaking; it is also about receiving the message, understanding it, and also analyzing the emotional and intellectual exchange that is happening between one or multiple entities. Rogers and Parson has also defined communication skill as a set of abilities that an individual uses to convey meaning. Now, when we talk about this meaning, it includes effective speaking, active listening, and responding appropriately to feedback. So, in these two definitions, we learned that communication is not only about transfer of ideas, feeling, or thought from one person to another. It is a set of abilities. It is an accomplished skill that enables us not only to express our views, our opinions in more effective manner, but it also involves active listening, understanding, and responding accordingly to the situation. Andrew D. Volvin and G.K. Cockley has defined communication skill as the tools that we use to remove the barriers to effective communication, skills that involve verbal and nonverbal technique to ensure clarity, empathy, and understanding. Deborah Tannen has defined communication skill as skill in communication involve the strategic use of language to manage relationship and negotiate meaning. So from all these four definitions, we come to a conclusion that communication skill is set of abilities or tools that help us not only to express our ideas in a much better way, but also it enables us to remove all the obstacles, all the hindrance that come in path of an effective communication. Now, when we say effective communication, we mean that what the message is to be delivered is delivered in a manner in which the receiver understand it clearly. right? So, according to Andrew Revolvin and Cockley, they said that this is a skill. These are the communication skill is a tool that involves verbal and non-verbal techniques wherein we can express or we can ensure that our message is clear, empathetic, and it is understood by the receiver. Deborah Taney had the same opinion wherein she said that it is a strategic implantation of your skill wherein it helps you to manage your relationship, negotiate meaning, and understand things in a much better way. Now, broadly, in a very basic levels, we have divided communication in seven major types, and it covered almost all type of communication. The first one is verbal communication, wherein we use spoken words or written words to convey our message. Non-verbal communication, wherein body parts are involved. Written communication, any form of written document is written communication. Visual communication, when visual elements are used for communication purpose, that is visual communication. Formal communication is a more structure, the communication that we prefer in an organized institution, that is formal communication. Informal is the casual, spontaneous one that we often use in our chit chats, conversations. And the last one is electronic communication, wherein communication is done through electronic devices. Coming to the first type of communication, that is verbal communication. The overview of verbal communication is the use of spoken or written words to convey your message. Any message that is communicated through written words or you speak it, then it's a verbal communication. The examples are conversation that you have with your friends, family, the speech given by orator, PowerPoint presentation, or the written documents that are submitted. These are the example of verbal communication. Now, why verbal communication is used? It is effective for direct and clear messages. When we want to say something clearly or in a direct way, we prefer verbal communication over other types of communication for sharing expression your information or expressing your emotion. Verbal communication comes handy in place. The second one is non-verbal communication. Now, when we communicate not by speaking something, not by writing something, but through our body language. For example, I'm using my eyes to stare someone, to make them scared. I am winking at someone. I'm clapping for someone. Without saying or without writing anything, I am trying to communicate. These involves your body language, how you walk, how you sit, how you present yourself, how you enter a room. These all comes in body language. Now, gesture. There are some signs and symbols. Like, for example, if umpire stands in middle of the ground, there is one gesture fixed that he gives for 6 rounds. Similarly, there is a gesture for leg bye. Similarly, there is a gesture for no ball. So all these comes in the non-verbal communication. Your facial expressions and the body posture are also the part of non-verbal communication, wherein we are not speaking anything nor writing anything, but our body is talking. The examples are eye contact, the hand gestures, tone of your voice, body movements. These are non-verbal communication. Now, non-verbal communication is very effective for complementing the verbal communication. We cannot chatter all day long or we cannot write all day long, but it helps us to express our emotions in a much better way, conveying our sincerity or attitude to the context. The third one is written communication. Any message that is written down, either by hand, physically, or you are typing it down in a digital platform. The emails, the letters, reports, social media posts, the Instagram posts that we do, the tweets we do on X platform, these are all written communication. Now, written communication are very, very essential or effective for detailed information. If we want something to be recorded, if we want something to have a permanent cast over things, then we prefer always a written communication. The spoken communication may lost its entity or it can get diluted over a time. But written communications stay for a very long period and they are recorded in the times of history. Then the next one is visual communication. Now we all know the world is transforming. The classes are going in online mode. Most of our things, we are dependent on our computers, screens, and everything. So when we use any kind of visual elements, right? Any kind of visual elements to communicate ideas or information, these kind of communication are very helpful for small kids, or in the topmost companies wherein big datas are to be present in a more condensed form. For example, if you go in LKG classrooms, you will find that the books are very colorful, the content is less, but the pictures are more. Similarly, if you go somewhere wherein more datas are to be present in a condensed form, we use pie diagrams, Venn diagram, bar graphs, symbols, videos, charts. All these things come under visual communication. It helps us to simplify complex information. It supports in verbal and written communication, and also because of its colorful nature and eye-catching thing, it helps us to record things in a much easier way. We don't have to mug up anything. The picture memory stays with us for a very long time. Next, the formal communication, the structured and official communication. When you have an organization where are different people are doing different roles, we have a structure, we have an official communication that we follow. We cannot go around hovering with informal communication, normal chit chats. For example, when official reports are made, when policies are announced, when your budgets are made, when notices are given, all these type of things wherein you have to establish clear protocols, you have to maintain discipline, professionalism, and also you need to document things for the future reference or for present context. We use formal communication wherein we try to avoid all kind of unnecessary information, informal language, no SMS language, no internet lingos. We use a simple condensed communication, and only that context is presented which is necessary. Unnecessary part or unnecessary contents are avoided in formal communication. Informal communication again is the casual and the spontaneous one that we have with our family, friends, or someone wherein we are in a very casual mode. This is your conversation among friends, the casual email that we send to our colleagues, or the WhatsApp texting, the instant text that you send to your family or groups. It is very effective for your relationship because, as we have seen earlier, the formal communication cannot help you to form a strong bond. It is in a more formal sense wherein only the necessary data are used. But in informal communication, all kind of contents are used, and the subject range can from vary to a small thing to a very big things. It also helps in fostering creativity, and also it is very spontaneous, like you don't have to think or put in efforts to communicate in informal language because this is our inbuilt thing. The last is electronic communication, that is communication through electronic devices. When we use electronic devices to express our thoughts, belief, information, or anything, that is electronic communication. The example are emails that we send, the video calls, messaging app. These are very helpful for instant communication. If someone is working in a report situation, it enhances collaboration. It gives, in this world when everything is rapidly changing, world is turning into a capitalist place, and everything should be in a click of button. In these scenario, these type of communication help us to connect in the remote areas. The works are done in a more speedy manner. That's why electronic communication are very much preferred these days. So this was all our types of communication. All the types of communication are broadly covered in this topic. Next, coming to why communication skill is important. What is the necessity of having this in our course when we have so many, spontaneous subject going on? Why do we need this? We need this communication skill paper mainly because of 5 reasons. Now, the first one is building credibility and trust. Second one is enhancement of teamwork and collaboration. Third is resolving conflict and problem solving attitude. Fourth is driving innovation and creativity. Fifth is managing change and uncertainty. For all these broad 5 reasons, we prefer communication skill. Now, importance of communication skill include foundation of relationship. When you talk in an effective manner, when you communicate in an effective manner, it builds trust and understanding among each other, the sender and the receiver of the message. Also, it fosters teamwork and collaboration in any kind of setting, not in academic setting, but in any kind of setting, in any kind of environment. If you have an effective communication skill, it will help you to foster teamwork and it will allow you to collaborate in a much easier manner. Second, it enhances learning. Why? Because effective communication skill enables us to exchange our ideas and knowledge in a very planned way. It also encourages our participation and discussions. When we are able to express our thoughts, belief, action in an effective manner, it gradually increases our participation in other areas of the life. Third is conflict resolution. If you have an effective communication skill, the chances are that the people will not find any conflict in your opinion or thing. It helps you to put your thoughts, belief in a manner that people accept your notion. It helps in understanding the misunderstanding, the chaos that happen. It helps you to put straightforward that. Also, it promotes constructive dialogues. If there is any kind of issue, if there is any kind of problem, tension, or anything, effective communication allow us to have a productive or constructive dialogues to resolve that issue then and there. Effective expression of ideas. As already discussed, if you have an effective communication skill, it allows you to express your thought, idea, and feelings in a way that people understand you. It avoids misunderstanding, it avoids confusion. So, work or anything is done in a much smoother manner. Enhancing learning and teaching. You not only learn through it, but you also teach something. It is a continuous, ever growing process. It never stops. Every time we communicate, there is something new to learn, something new to add on to our own vocabulary and things. So it ensures that the complex topics are explained in a much effective manner so that it reaches to the end person. Also, emotional intelligence, persuasion, and influence. Communication skill gives you all these things. It is essential, it is most important if you are in a profession wherein your work allows you or your work permits you to persuade people or negotiate with people or influence people. For example, if you see in today's world, many people are earning their livelihood by becoming Instagram influencers. It is through their effective communication skill that they are able to get brand products, brand collaborations, and hence they are earning their livelihood. So if you have a strong communication skill, if you are good at it, it will always help you in doing or achieving these things. It is vital for creating strong bonds and understanding various perspective that goes around in any kind of communication. Now, we have learned till now what communication is, what authors have described, what are the types of communication. Also, just now we learned why communication skill is important. Now, coming to the topic, what communication process is. The communication process, like we have discussed, that it is a transfer of ideas. So whenever there is a transfer of something, it must undergo through a process. So what is that process through which communication take place? The communication process is a series of steps, right? It is a collaboration, it is a series of steps that facilitate the exchange of information, ideas, and feeling between individual or groups. Okay, so the first step in the communication flow process is the idea, conception, or the source, the thing that is to be delivered, the thing that is we need to communicate. The second is message encoding. Now, whatever source in conception or idea I have, that needs to be put in language that is or medium that is understandable by all of you. That is encoding. The process of converting your idea in something explainable is your message encoding. Third, third is your message transmission. How you transfer your मैसेज यू ईदर यूज सम काइंड ऑफ चैनल आपने जो सोचा है उसको आप ट्रांसफर करते हो थर्ड इज योर रिसेप्शन ऑफ मैसेज व्हेन द मैसेज इज ट्रांसफर्ड टू अ पर्सन द मैसेज इज रिसीव्ड बाय समवन अ ग्रुप और एन इंडिविजुअल then the receiver decodes it in a language that he understands up to his mental capability. Last one is feedback. When the receiver decodes the message and understands it, he gives a feedback in verbal or non-verbal form to the sender. That's how the loop is completed. From source to encoding to transmission, reception, then we have decoding, and the last one is feedback. The sender, the key component, the stakeholders in this process are first one is sender. Sender is the entity, person, individual, or group that initiates the message. The idea, the conception is with the sender. He is the source, he or she is the source, or they are the source. They are the initiator of the message, and they are the one who are responsible for encoding, that is transferring that idea or conception into an understandable language and then transmitting that information to the receiver. Second one is the message, the actual content that needs to be communicated, that can be in verbal form, non-verbal form, written, visual, or any kind of communication. The content is the message. Third is the channel. Channel is medium how you use to convey that message. For example, I have to send a WhatsApp message to someone. So the source will be, the sender will be me who is initiating this talk. Message will be the actual content that I will be sending to that person or group. The channel I am using is social media or the WhatsApp. The channel can be anything. Okay, there are several channels, like you can use words, you can use Instagram, Facebook, phone call, video call, Skype, FaceTiming. There are several channels that you can use. Print media, radio, television. These are all the channels that are there. Now, when the message is delivered through channel, there is a receiver who takes that message, or there is a receiver to whom that message is directed. Receiver is the individual or group who interprets that message, who decodes the message. Whatever message I have sent, that needs to be decoded on the receiver's level, what he or she or they understood with that message. And then after receiving the message, the receiver gives a feedback, whether the message was understood, he or she or they have some confusion, they have understood the context or not. Are there any other further questions, any other further suggestions that need to be given? That is in the hand of receiver, and the loop continues. Next, stages of communication process. Now, how this stage go? The first, when idea or conception or something happens, it is then encoded. The sender translate the thoughts and ideas into a message that can be understood. Suppose I have to give lecture on communication skill. There is some idea, some point, some information that I need to communicate. But if I am unable to express these ideas and conception in the word, I won't be able to communicate with you. So encoding is the process wherein the sender translate these thoughts, ideas in message, in content that can be understood to the audience. Okay. Next one is the transmission. The message is sent through the chosen channel to receiver. Now, whatever message I have to deliver, I am speaking on PowerPoint, on video call, right? I'm giving you a video lecture. So the channel for today's lecture is video. Then decode. You are the receiver. The people who are listening to these video lecture, they are the receiver. They will interpret the message that I am giving, that makes some sense, that have some meaningful part in it. Third is the feedback loop. When sender has sent the message, encoded it, transmitted it, and the receiver has received it, decoded it, then comes the feedback part. The receiver provides feedback to the sender. Either it can go in loop after one question, one answer, one question, one answer, or it comes to a full stop and the loop ends. Then, in between all these process, there comes a point that is known as noise. If the sender has initiated some communication, but the receiver has been unable to understand that message because of any external or internal factor, then that is known as the noise. For example, if I'm giving an video lecture right now and there is loud noise coming from the background, it may happen that the audience or the listener may not hear my voice clearly. So, any kind of disturbance that happens in this loop wherein sender sends a message and receiver gets it, that distraction or that hindrance or obstacle is known as the noise. For example, if you work in heavy machinery factory and make a call, there is a constantly loud noise. Or if there is hurricane or some kind of weather changes and network go down, so we are unable to make call and the communication is not clear. It arises confusion. After completing the first unit, the basics of communication skill, here comes the barriers to communication. When we try to communicate, when the sender initiates a message and receiver gets it, there are times when the communication is not completed. As in, what sender has decided to deliver, the receiver is unable to get that. So, what are barriers to communication and how many types of barriers are there? We are going to learn in the next unit. Barriers to communication are the obstacles, the hindrances that hinder the effective exchange of information, leading to misunderstanding, conflict, or incomplete explanations. Okay, any kind of obstacles because of which we are unable to complete our communication. The receiver is not getting the full message. That is known as barrier to the communication. In this unit, we have 8 barriers to communication: physical, cultural, language, gender, interpersonal, emotional, psychological, and physiological. The first one to discuss here is physical barrier. Physical barrier refers to the environmental factors that hinder our communication, such as distance, noise, poor technical devices, or room full of windows, all the windows are open and sounds are coming out, and there is no soundproofing in the room. So, any environmental factor, any external factor, because of which we are unable to have an effective communication, is physical barrier. Because of the physical barriers, the message are not transmitted properly and the receiver doesn't get full information or the full explanation to his emotions or expression or ideas is not communicated in a better manner. How to remove these barriers, the physical barriers? We need to optimize our environment before communicating. We must consider in what kind of environment we are talking. We should always use updated technological devices so that while talking we don't lose signal strength or any kind of mic problem, speaker problem are there, or camera problem are there. And third is the flexible arrangement, as in, if there is a kind of room wherein lot of noise is coming, there should be a separate arrangement where you can find yourself a peaceful environment where you can conduct your communication. Then the cultural barrier. Cultural barrier refers to the different culture norms, values, expectations that we are coming from. Or in India, there are so many cultures that are followed, and worldwide also. If we go to other continents or other countries, we will find that there are numerous cultures that people follow, and they differ very drastically. The cultural differences are very pronounced in other regions or areas. So, non verbal cues like eye contact, and eye contact in some cultures are considered as inappropriate, indisciplined. In some cultures, it is considered as being confident, as being, observant of things, or nodding of your head. In many culture, nodding your head horizontally means yes. In many, it means no. So, cultural barrier means respecting other cultures, norm, beliefs, their values, and communicating in that manner. If cultural barrier happens in communication, it often leads to confusions, biasness, and disputes. How to remove this cultural barrier? We should always be mindful of other people's culture before starting the communication. We should not speak anything that hurts other people culture. Confirming their feedback, as in if we talk to someone who is from different culture, we should surely take a feedback whether the message has been communicated properly or not. Also educating ourselves of the all other cultures that are present, especially if you are a sender and there is a receiver from other culture. We should always educate ourselves and talk in the limits of their cultural acceptance. Then there is language barrier. Language barrier occurs when individuals or group do not share a common language or having the same level of proficiency in a language. This led to the misinterpretation of message. Most of if for example, if I start delivering this lecture in Sanskrit, in French or Spanish, most of the Hindi speaking audience or English speaking audience, they will find it difficult. But for the people who speak Sanskrit language or French language or Spanish language, they will find it easy. So language barrier occurs when the sender and receiver, they both speak different languages, or they don't match the same level of proficiency in the language. It affects our communication by hindering clear communication. We are unable to express our thought, belief, and information in an effective manner, and the message remains broken. How to remove this barrier? If two persons communicating in two different language, we should always come point to a common language wherein both can understand. Also, try to offer translation or interpretations using translation and interpretation services. For example, if world conferences happens, there are world leaders assembled together. For an example, UN, United Nations, WHOs, all these kind of international organization, they appoint special translators and interpreters because they know that the world leaders, they all don't speak the same language. So, in such cases, the help of translators or interpreters are used for effective communication. Next is gender barrier. Now, gender barrier refers to the difference in communication style and expectations based on gender. Our society has different norms for gender. Some societies are patriarchal societies, some societies are matriarchal society. Also, in the beginning there were only men and women, the male and female. Now we have LGBTQT plus plus. There are several genders that we accommodate in. So these barriers occur when we don't recognize the gender uh, values, what that gender holds for. This led to potential misunderstanding. This also leads to some kind of stereotypes. For example, in most of the patriarchal society or the patriarchal family, it is said that if you are a girl, if you belong to a female gender, you should always speak in a polite manner, demure manner. uh, you should not speak in loud language, loud voice. So these type of stereotype arises when there is a gender barrier. For example, one gender may prioritize direct communication while other may rely on clues, interactions, or some kind of thing. To remove this gender barrier, we should be sensitive toward all genders. Acceptance of all the genders are necessary. Also, we should avoid any kind of prejudice, any kind of stereotypes that is there. Also, inclusivity is one thing. All the opinions, all the for reasons that for a male, regions are different, they have different problem, they have different set of communication skill. For females, they have different set of things, and for transgender, they are different things. But if we want to remove gender barrier, we should be inclusive of all the genders, and we should avoid any kind of stereotypes associated with any kind of gender. Next is interpersonal barrier. Now, interpersonal barriers are the obstacle that arise from personal relationship and dynamics between individual. Lack of trust, unresolved conflicts, difference of opinion, arguments. These comes under interpersonal barrier. It can affect your relationship, the close relationship. It can reduce the collaboration. It can affect the teamwork. It can also hamper your group works. How can we remove this interpersonal barrier? By building trust with your colleagues. Active listening is one of the most essential part to remove interpersonal barrier. We should not only try to be the speaker one, we should also be a receiver and wherein we are actively listening to what is being said or communicated. Also, we should be quick in resolving our conflicts. Next is emotional barrier. Emotional barrier stem from the feeling that interfere your communication. Your strong emotions like anger, fear, anxiety, tension, panic attacks, they mount up. They distort our judgment. They make us more biased or prejudiced. They make us weak, timid, or strong emotions like overjoy, uh, extremely happy, extremely extrovert, they somehow they don't recognize the receiver's perspective and they go to the extreme. This can lead to defensive responses or withdrawal from the communication or disinterestedness. So we should avoid emotional barrier during communication. And how can we avoid that, or how can we remove that? By being more mindful of our emotions, having control over emotions. Also, we should be always open to the dialogues. We should not constrain ourselves, or we should not over express ourselves. Psychological barrier refer to the internal factor, your mental health, your preconceived notions, your health, that challenges your or that affects your ability to communicate effectively. Such barriers make you more closed. It helps you grow in your comfort zone. Beyond comfort zone, you are unable to express yourself. You're very close to your loved ones but unable to express, or public speaking, you fear that thing. Self reflection, therapy sessions, or encouraging diversity, these will enhance your psychological ability, and hence you will be able to communicate in a much effective manner. Physiological barriers are the physical limitation that impact our communication capabilities. If someone is born, with hearing defect or speech disorders or health, or even after growing up, if someone undergoes some kind of health issue wherein one loses their ability to express things or to understand things, these kind of conditions come under physiological barriers. How to avoid them? Using technology, clearing environment, having a clean environment wherein disabilities are not taken as something that draws you back, but something that makes you differently able. Also, training and resources are very helpful in these kind of barrier. With this, we come to the conclusion of second subunit. Now, the third subunit is perspective in communication. What is perspective in communication? Perspective in communication refers to the individual viewpoint. If I'm speaking something, I have a viewpoint. That viewpoint is my perspective, a lens through which I interpret message or I interact in any given situation. It shapes how I convey my message and how I receive my message. Okay, this is individual. This is personal. Importance of perspective, it influences understanding. Okay, how you understand a message, how you interpret it, it affects that. Second, it affects our interpersonal relationship and collaboration. The way you perceive others' messages or the way you perceive information, it affects your collaboration strength, how well you collaborate or how well you gel with other members. It also shapes the organizational culture and dynamics. Someone with a good perspective, they will always add up to the institution or organization. Someone who tries to find out negative in everything, they will always take the organization or culture in a downward direction. Understanding perspective, recognizing the factors, we should recognize the factor that shape our perspective. What all are the reasons, what all are the factors through which our perspective is shaped or built, and how can we improve that perspective? To improve our perspective, we should promote awareness. You should be aware of all other perspective. If I have certain perspective and I think that is the only right perspective to have, that is wrong. We should always be open to have different kind of perspective, learning new things every day. Second, fostering open dialogues. We should always be open to have a healthy communication. Problems, doubts, confusions, surely we have them. But if we are unable to express those things, our communication suffer, it hampers, and most of the things are left unsaid. We should encourage em- we should encourage empathy, cultural competence, and mutual understanding. These are the strategies to improve our perspective. By improving our perspective, we appreciate different viewpoints. We are collecting all the viewpoints of individual organization. Also, by gaining that data, we can enhance our organization. We can foster the collaborative environment. We can foster a more inclusive where everyone's opinion and viewpoint is counted and there is no dictatorship in any kind of communication. So the factors that affect our perspective, the factors that affect our viewpoint while we communicate are your cultural background, your personal experience, social identity, education and knowledge, emotional state, and communicational environment. Cultural background. How cultural background helps you in forming your viewpoint? The culture from which you are growing up, it gives you certain values, certain norms, and certain beliefs through which we grow, and it is not easy to give up. So most of our perspectives to the communication comes from our cultural rooting, the way we are born up, the way we are induced, the values, the family values, our cultural values, our religious values, these all are counted. Second is your personal experience. Any kind of past experience, either good or bad, it shapes our attitude and reaction to the current situation. Like Freud and all the psychologists, they have claimed that past experience stays with us in our unconscious form, and whatever communication today we have, those past experiences resurfaces themselves in our conscious talking. Third is social identity. Factors such as your age, we cannot expect same kind of communication from a 5-year-old and 25-year-old guy, right? There are differences. So factors such as your age, gender, ethnicity, your socioeconomic status, these all contribute in forming you a viewpoint. Everyone belong from different strata of the society. What a viewpoint a rich man is having is not necessary that a poor man might have the same viewpoint in any kind of conversation. Then education and knowledge. The level of education, like I told you, we cannot expect same kind of maturity from a student who has only gone to school till 5 and someone who is having a PhD degree, or someone who is uh, having big degrees on their name. We cannot expect same kind of perspective from the person. So your level of education, your exposure to different kind of thing, different viewpoints, how broaden your perspectives are, it enhances your critical thinking and communication skill. So surely education and knowledge shapes our perspective. Then emotional state. We all are human, and our emotions vary from time to time. One person cannot stay in the same state of emotion. If I'm happy now, doesn't mean that I will be happy for the next 5 days or next 5 minutes. I can be sad or angry or irritated in the next second only. So, your emotional state, your current emotion affects how the message is interpreted. If you are in stress, even good news doesn't sound any good news. And if you're in happy state, you try to take the bad news in good way. So your emotional state defines your perspective toward communication. And then the communication environment. So the context and settings, right? Any kind of setting, if you are among your friend, the level of communication, the level of understanding, the level of perspective you will have will completely different if you are sitting with CEOs in a meeting room discussing some vital, strategies or force. The environment shapes it. The environment shapes how you perceive a message, how seriously you take it, or how jolly you take it. And also it affects the dynamics of interaction. If you are with your friends, your communication style will be casual, there will be no formal interaction. But same if you are in meeting room discussing some vital notices, theories, or something like that, you will always have a formal attitude toward that interaction. Thank you everyone for joining in. That's all. So in this unit, we have mainly discussed three subunits: the basics of communication skill, wherein we discuss the definition, the importance of communication skill in today's time, and the process through which communication is done, the key stakeholders in this process. The second unit was barriers to communication. When we communicate, what are the things that hinder our communication? So there were several barriers that we read today. And the third was perspective. When we communicate, how our viewpoint is shape our communication, what are the factors that affect our viewpoint. So these were the three subtopics in unit 1 of communication skill as per the syllabus of AKTU. Thank you again for joining.